Let us now start the JCAS 2023 Japan Climate Action Summit 2023 organized by the Japan Climate Initiative. I will serve as moderator today. My name is Yuri Okubo, Senior Climate Engagement Strategist of the Renewable Energy Institute. First, those of you participating online, I would like to explain to you how to use the language selection tool. Please take a look at the screen. Joint audio, I think there is that tab on your screen, so please click that tab. And after that, join audio by computer. Please click that panel, and you will see a globe mark if you're using PC, and you will see the word interpretation on the screen if you're using a mobile phone. And then you can select the language of your choice, either Japanese or English. Now, we wish to discuss about a climate crisis, which you may think is an issue for the distant future, but this summer was unendurably hot. Japan still depends on a fossil fuel for a large portion of its energy. And even with the rising fuel prices and the Japanese yen depreciation, we continue to make massive investment in fossil fuel. So fossil fuel is still being burnt in our country. We have to take climate action speedily. We see a contradiction here, and the hot summer this year may have forced you to contemplate about this contradiction. What is expected from Japan? Non-state actors. How are climate actions being taken by these people? This year as well, we wish to hear from members active in the front lines about what they think about these topics. We want to make it an interactive event this year, much more than before, so we decided to introduce a real-time communication tool. Let us now practice how to use this tool. Could you please take out your mobile phones, those of you participating on site? And please scan the QR code on your attendance card or on the screen. And then I think you can see the first question. And for people participating online, there will be the questionnaire panel, I think, appearing on your screen. So if you could please respond to the questionnaire. And if you tap the small arrow on the right-hand side of the questionnaire panel will disappear from the screen. The first question is, how is your climate action going? If you could please respond to this first question, thank you very much. How is your climate action going? On the screen in front of you, the results will appear. If you could please wait a bit more until we get all the response. We are starting to see more and more responses. About 20% of the people responded very much, and about half of the participants responded so-so, and about 20% of the people responded just begun. What impression do you have of this result? And members of JCAS, you may have thought that the response would have been better, or maybe some of you are being modest in responding to this question. Next time, we plan to have an event that urges you all to respond with confidence that you are doing everything you can. We wish to make a more motivating event going forward. Sorry for the long introduction. We would first like to call upon Mr. Takehiro Sueyoshi, co-representative of the Japan Climate Initiative, to make an opening remark. Mr. Sueyoshi, the floor is yours.
Welcome to JCAS 2023. 5 years ago, we started with 105 members, and recently the number has reached 789, and I believe that perhaps it'll reach 1,000 quite soon. To this day, I am honestly surprised and grateful that new members continue to join without interruption. Each passing year reflects the reality that Japan's non-state actors, or NSAs, are sincerely facing up to the climate crisis and are earnestly working to achieve the goals of the Paris Agreement. I am extremely encouraged to see this. I would like to take this opportunity to express my respect and gratitude not only to those members, but naturally to all those who participate in or support JCI's activities. I would also like to extend my sincere thanks to all the speakers at today's JCAS as well. Now, as the cool morning and evening breezes blow and the autumn weather deepens, it is easy to forget about the summer heats. I could see that there was snow on top of Mount Fuji from the Yokosuka line. And so it's easy to forget that there was this heat that made us suffer so much. However, this summer's extreme weather must not be forgotten as a passing phenomenon. The out-of-sight, out-of-mind attitude should never be tolerated. This is because climate was already in crisis from the change, but apparently the collapse has started, and we cannot afford to take our time. The person who is extremely distressed about this climate emergency is Secretary General of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres. Let me introduce some of the desperate warnings issued by the Secretary General. Only a few years ago, he said the planet is broken and making peace with nature is the defining task of the 21st century. But after the extreme heat experienced this year, he said the era of global warming is over. The era of global boiling has begun. The era of global warming has ended, and the era of global warming has arrived. Will humanity cooperate, or will they perish? And the sense of urgency has escalated, and the language of warning has increased in intensity. Further, in September, the Secretary General said climate breakdown has begun with the hottest summer on record. The warning is becoming severer. It was this summer that the UN Secretary General was made to feel so threatened. There is no way we can stand idly by and watch. I am sure you feel the same way. Against this backdrop, the government of Japan passed the GX Promotion Act. It says that in the next 10 years, over 150 trillion yen will be invested by the public and private sectors to promote the GX of Japanese industry. Certainly, the amount of money, over 150 trillion yen, is an impressive figure. But when you look at the contents, how much can CO2 emission be reduced as a result of spending over 150 trillion? How much will the installed capacity of renewable energy increase? There are no key numerical targets. In other words, it's not clear where the responsibility lies regarding the results to be obtained through such a large monetary expenditure. There is, of course, no visibility in the quantitative path toward 2030. This is a serious problem. As you know, the Cabinet in April 2021 announced that Japan will reduce its GHG emissions by 46% in 2030 compared to 2013. This was an NDC international commitment, and I'm sure you are aware of this. But the GX Promotion Act, how much is it contributing to achieving this target? In the private sector, commitment to the results of using precious funds when making investments is commonplace. It's taken for granted that you make a commitment, but this is missing here. At this juncture, work on the first global stocktake, as required by the Paris Agreement, is in full swing. The IPCC 6 assessment synthesis report calls for the world to reduce GHG emissions by 60% from 2019 levels by 2035, 65% in terms of CO2 emissions. And I'm sure you're aware about this appeal. Despite this, the government of Japan has been silent on the 2035 target since fiscal year 2030, which is covered by the GX Promotion Act. My concerns are only mounting. What, by the way, should we learn from this summer's heat wave? The lessons, and what have you learned? The lessons I have learned are as follows. Then there are two. Number one, the voice of science was right after all. We need to do some soul searching and think seriously about listening more carefully to the voice of science. And two, in order not to repeat this, we must raise our sense of crisis to a global level and not talk about dream technologies for the distant future, such as hydrogen and ammonia, and not to exclusively talk about these, but rather make maximum efforts to conserve energy and to leverage renewable energy with technologies that are available now and as quickly as possible, and to achieve visible reduction in GHG emissions as much as possible. And these are the 2 points. As I was thinking about this, UN Secretary General issued his final warning. Humanity has opened the gates to hell. To repeat, humanity has opened gates to hell. We might say that this is foolish to say so, but it is a sense of urgency about letting things deteriorate to this extent. And Mr. Guterres continues to issue very dire warnings, but he is also trying to inspire us. He says we can still avoid the worst of climate chaos. So under the present circumstances, what can we do under the critical situation? As Japanese citizens, we should support the government's GX Promotion Act and monitor its developments closely in order to make it more effective, while at the same time taking measures that we should take ourselves rather than relying on the government alone. We should do this with a strong sense of crisis and urgency and translate the measures that need to be taken into action. The longer we wait for governments, the more we may fall behind in the international competition. I really think so. We often hear the words from talk to walk and from walk to action. From talk to action. But what is required now is from action to impact. To realize that clear impact. That is the kind of action that is needed. To achieve this, it is important not only to work individually, but also to join hands with like-minded people and move forward together. And through this power, we must upgrade the Japanese government's policies into an ambitious one. This co-creation by creating together, collaboration by acting together, these are the mottos that form the backbone of JCI. We, the JCI Secretariat, intend to make further efforts to be a bridge between members and a platform for co-creation and cooperation. We will enhance our efforts. On the 5th of October, yesterday, the EU Copernicus Climate Change Service, CS3, talked about September being the hottest summer, which was unprecedented. It was a record. It's a record-breaking heat that they will be forecasting for the next year. As for the director, Carlo Longtempo, he says that the climate change is not going to occur 10 years from now. It's here now. And so if that's the case, in the next few years is the last chance for humanity to regain the sanity it almost lost. We hope that today's JCAS will be a source of support and encouragement to you. JCI members, those in this hall, those who are participating online, let us work together hand in hand and let us sweat it out. Thank you very much for your kind attention today.
That was Mr. Sueyoshi, co-representative of Japan Climate Initiative. Next, we will show you 2 video messages from overseas, from international leaders. First is from Mr. Michael Bloomberg, founder of Bloomberg and Bloomberg Philanthropies, UN Special Envoy for Climate Ambition and Solutions, former mayor of New York City. The second is Ms. Razan Al-Mubarak, UN Climate Change High-Level Champion for the UAE, leading the efforts of non-state actors around the world.
When it comes to fighting climate change, there's really no time to waste. Every day we're seeing the effects. Storms, wildfires, heat waves, all are growing more dangerous, deadly, and economically devastating. Climate change affects every part of the world, and we have to move faster in tackling it. The good news is we know what needs to be done. Increase clean energy investments, end methane pollution, protect the ocean, and close coal-fired power plants while providing clean sources of energy for a growing world. And Bloomberg Philanthropies, I'm happy to say, is working to do just that. All of that work requires strong partnerships, especially between the public and private sectors. It also requires serious investments in cities and local leaders so they can deliver climate solutions for the communities they serve. As we look towards COP28, we all have a role to play in finding more ways to work together. For the sake of our health and our children, I look forward to seeing the progress we make together. All the best.
Welcome to the Japan Climate Action Summit. It is a great honor to address you today, not only as an advocate for our planet, but also in my role as UN Climate Change High-Level Champion, a position I am privileged to hold alongside my esteemed colleague, Dr. Mahmoud Muhyiddin. Together, we spearhead the Race to Zero campaign, and it's imperative to acknowledge the pivotal role of the Japan Climate Initiative as one of our initial Asian partners in bolstering this cause. Today, I want to delve into the Race to Zero's priorities as we approach COP28 and explore the instrumental role Japan can undertake to preserve the 1.5 degrees Celsius goal. Given the stark reality of our global climate crisis, it is crucial that all stakeholders, whether businesses, financial institutions, or governmental entities, act together with urgency to solidify our path to achieving a 1.5 degree future. With over 12,000 non-state actors on board, the Race to Zero unites a global force, aiming to slash emissions by 50% by 2030. Our focus, especially as we gaze towards COP28, is organized around 4 pillars. Number 1, we need to accelerate delivery. Number 2, we need to transparently track our progress. Number 3, we need to activate policy. And number 4, we need to focus on regionalization, tailoring the Race to Zero to resonate within regions with a focus on inclusivity, equity, and justice is a must. Japan, with its notable capacity for international and domestic carbon emissions reductions, stands at a pivotal juncture. The G20, of which Japan is a member, accounts for approximately 80% of global greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, as part of the G20 and the G7, Japan possesses a tremendous opportunity to champion significant solutions, such as investing in nature, which harbors more than a third of our mitigation potential, and amplify investment and advancement in renewable energy technologies. The Japan Climate Initiative is playing a critical role in engaging your government, and I encourage all of us to ensure that we are part of a global process that engages all stakeholders. From my position, it is unmistakably clear that the synergy between non-state actors and governments is fundamental in propelling climate ambition and action forward. And I commend your presence here today and eagerly anticipate observing Japan's leadership in navigating the global decarbonization journey and ensuring the preservation of our 1.5-degree objective. Thank you all for your commitment.
We've had messages from two people who are taking global leadership and taking action. Race to Zero campaign was mentioned. JCI is the secretariat of this, and by 2030 to reduce by 50%. And there are 34 organizations which are participating. And this year in the UAE, COP28 will be taking place, and approximately 80 JCI members are scheduled to attend. International discussion and action, I think this will be a very good opportunity to be exposed to that. So we'd like to move to the keynote. First, we have PRI Independent Chair, Mr. Skancke. This is PRI aims to promote investment, incorporating ESG concepts to the institutional investors of the world. Mr. Skancke will be talking about the role of institutional investors. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. I'm Martin Skancke. I'm chair of the PRI. It's a great honor for me to be here today. I think this is better. And talk about institutional investors and how they think about climate. So I'm coming at this from a slightly different angle, from the angle of institutional investors. I'm chair of the PRI, which is an organization for institutional investors. We just had the pleasure of having our annual summit here in Tokyo this week. We have over 5,000 signatories to the PRI, institutional investors, many of them here in Japan. And together they manage over $120 trillion of assets. And what we try to do is to incorporate environmental, social governance issues in investment practices. And of course, one of the issues that our signatories care very deeply about is the climate issue. So what I'll try to do is to explain a little bit about how now investors think about navigating climate issues. Of course, the starting point is the extreme high concentration of climate gases in our atmosphere, reconstructed time series over 800,000 years. We now have the highest we've had in, scientists tell us, in 3 million years, and the most rapid increase in CO2 concentrations ever in the history of the planet. And this, of course, leads to higher temperatures. So the challenge is this very rapid transition away from fossil fuels to reduce our emissions. That's sort of the core of the transition challenge. So from an economic perspective, this also means that we need to think about how we allocate capital. So in a market economy, the role of financial markets is to allocate capital, to decide which companies get finance and which companies do not get finance. So if you're going to change the composition of our energy system, we also need to change the flow of investment capital. And so that's the basis for this. And this energy transition will give two types of risks. If we are very successful in transforming the energy system, we will have a lot less physical risk. But a rapid transition will give some transition risk because we will have a rapid change in incentives and the economic environment for many types of businesses. If we have a very slow transition, then of course the transition risk is lower, but the physical risk is a lot higher. And these risks can affect companies in different ways. I'm not going through this in detail, but the reference here is from the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, which I've been a member of, and actually Michael Bloomberg, we saw on the screen, is chair of the group. And so we try to set up a sort of very schematic way of thinking about how climate-related risks and opportunities can affect companies financially. So the idea is to bring climate down and look at how it affects companies financially. And the TCFD, the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosures, was established during the Paris COP, where the Paris Agreement was made in 2015, and we published our recommendations in 2017. And this is what they look like. I will not go through all of them. But the idea is that this is a set of questions that investors can ask of companies to understand how those companies manage climate-related risks and opportunities. And that, in turn, will be the basis of their decisions on whether a particular company will get financed or not. So I will not go through all of this, but maybe just comment on one of these 11 questions. If you look at the bottom question under strategy, it says, describe the resilience of the organization's strategy under different climate-related scenarios, including a 2-degree or lower scenario. The resilience of the strategy, what does that mean in plain English? It means, please tell me how you can make money with your business model in a world where we're successful in climate policy. Or in other words, do you have a business model that will only make money if we're not successful in climate policy? This is a very powerful question to ask an oil and gas company. Are these investments that are only profitable if we're not successful in climate policy? And so this is what we can call a stress test. It is trying to look at how resilient a business model is, a company's earning is, under different assumptions about climate policy. So as an investor, you would like to invest in companies that are able to make money in a low-carbon society, in a low-carbon economy. These are the kinds of questions that you would ask to understand whether a particular company is able to do that. So if we think about this rapid transition out of carbon and into renewable energy, we know that we need to make a big transition in the economy. What we don't know is the extent to which that transition will happen through a transformation of existing companies or building down existing companies and building up new companies. So will the energy companies of the future be today's fossil fuel companies who have transformed themselves into leaders in renewable energy? Will tomorrow's car producers be today's car producers who have transformed themselves into being leaders in electric vehicles? Or will newcomers take their place? I think the most realistic and reasonable answer to that question is that it will be a mix of both. Some companies will be able to transform themselves, and others will not. And the difficult question for investors, for financial institutions, for banks, is to understand which companies are the ones that will be able to transform themselves. If you think that a particular company is able to transform itself, then you would let that company keep the money they're making now and reinvest it in their own company. But if you don't believe that this company will be able to make money in a low-carbon economy, then you should put pressure on that company to pay back as much they can to their shareholders so that their shareholders can take that money and invest in something else. This is the role that financial markets should play in a market economy. It's the role of financial markets to allocate capital. It's the role of banks to make an assessment of whether a particular company deserves to get finance, whether they can actually make a profit in the future. So we need to bring an assessment of climate into that process. And this framework is an attempt to do that in a structured way. So if we think about this chain, it means the investors are funding companies, and the companies are taking that money, investing in different types of projects. So you can think about a company in two different ways. One way to think about a company is that it's actually a portfolio of different projects. Another way of thinking about a company is that it's the platform you invest in to get access to the value creation from those projects. So if you think about an investor, let's say you're an investor and you say, I want some exposure to oil and gas, because we will still have that for some years, and I want some exposure to renewable energy. Well, there are two ways of doing that, at least. One way is to invest in a fossil fuel company that's in the process of transforming into a renewable energy company, and a company that has some investments in oil and gas and some in renewables. But you could also invest in one company that does only oil and gas and another company that does only renewables. So the investor has to think about two things. One is, what kind of projects do you want exposure to? And the other is, through which companies do you want exposure to those types of projects? And thinking about corporate strategy and how well you think a particular company will be as an investment platform is core of what the responsibility of investors is. It's the job of investors to decide which companies get finance. And so we must put pressure on companies to disclose this relevant information to make it possible for financial markets to make that judgment. And if investors make a good job of assessing whether a particular company is able to transform itself, it will do a service to itself because the investor will make more money, but also a service to society because we will avoid capital being locked up in uses that we don't want. So this is an area where actually the interest of the financial sector and the interest of the wider society is perfectly aligned, but it requires that companies are transparent about those risks. And so that is the core of this TCFD framework, which is now gradually become compulsory in very many countries. Also, it's been part of the so-called ISSB for those who follow the International Sustainability Standard Boards. So this is now becoming compulsory disclosures. But it's very important for financial sector to keep up the pressure on high quality disclosures in this area. So the TCFD published, and I'm not going through all of this, but just to make you aware that there is a lot of material on the TCFD website. And also an organization called GFANZ, the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero. So I'm just leaving these for reference. But there are lots of materials now available for financial institutions who want to go deeper into these issues. And finally, my final slide. Investors are now increasingly cooperating on exercising ownership, going to companies and asking them these difficult questions. Because in the modern economy, there are many, many small shareholders in each individual company. And so the shareholders need to cooperate and go to companies together to ask these questions. And Climate Action 100+ is a forum for investors. We have about 500 or 600 investors, many Japanese, going to the 160 companies in the world with the largest emissions and asking them about their strategies for reducing emissions. These companies, these 160 companies, account for 80% of the world's total emissions from the industry sector. So investors are now stepping up, they're acting, and they are making a difference in climate policy. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skancke. Financial institutions' power should be utilized more for this energy transition. Your presentation was very insightful. Thank you very much. Now the second speaker is from Clean Energy Buyers Association, which is comprised of more than 420 renewable energy user companies. Vice President Mark Porter is the second speaker. In Japan, we see more and more renewable energy PPAs, so he will be talking about its potential. Mr. Porter, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me here and being able to speak with you today. My name is Mark Porter. I work for the Clean Energy Buyers Alliance based in the US. We support voluntary procurement of clean energy by companies around the world to try and help them meet their goals and targets and avoid the worst effects of climate change. To help advance these transactions and this work, we focus on two areas. Top down, where we help to open and expand and resolve markets, and bottom up, where we help to have transactions occur quicker with better clarity on risk than they otherwise would do. We believe that in order to overcome market challenges, we need to discuss these and develop solutions with all actors present. This is why the Clean Energy Buyers Alliance, or CEBA, why CEBA's membership is expansive and holistic, including stakeholders with perspectives from all angles. We feel it's critical to have all actors in the room when discussing the challenges and have all actors in the room when discussing solutions, such that markets will scale, markets will move towards impact. And talking about scale, in the last 10 years, the US market has evolved from a position where essentially no voluntary transactions had undertaken to over 120 being announced in 2022 alone. Roughly 70% of the total US renewable energy market last year was driven by corporates. All this is possible through the massive influx of companies procuring clean energy, but there's been a consequence. With such a large increase in demand in what is essentially an industry building, societally essential and critical infrastructure, we have seen that because of this rapid demand and the somewhat consistent pace of infrastructure development, we saw a balance of the negotiation power between buyer and seller shift in around 2021. Yet, despite buyers, despite companies becoming more price takers, more term takers in transactions, the market has continued. Capacity volumes have continued to increase, as has the number of companies procuring each year. It's true that some of the companies are now unable to move at the pace they need because of a seller's market, and/or are unwilling to take some of the new terms and some of the price changes. But despite this, the market has endured. Demand remains strong, and as a consequence, we think this demand will continue. But also as a consequence, we don't expect a shift back in negotiation power from seller towards buyers. Not anytime soon, anyway. Continuing a long-established trend, the power purchase agreement has been the principal contracting vehicle, about 75% of all deals. And unrelated to the procurement structure, solar PV, from a technology perspective, is also about 3/4 of the market. And we expect both of those trends to continue in the future. All this activity is impressive and amazing to see, but there are considerable headwinds in the US market. Grid technical challenges, permitting barriers, entrenched interests, and political posturing are slowing down the development of the US grid infrastructure at a time when it is key and ultimately is creating the constriction on supply and that buyer's market I mentioned. The US grid needs significant upgrades to meet the demands of the current societal needs, but also the future, the new clean energy economy, and in a world where climate is playing an increasing role in our asset base. I'm going to ask everybody here and everyone online not to fall into the trap that I hear happening in the US. And echoing some of the speakers earlier, the trap is the thinking that we have ample time to deal with this challenge and that somebody else will. I am a dual British Canadian and a recovering financial accountant. I'm fairly conservative, but I'm here to continue the conversation that climate change is real. It is now. We need to act, and we have that opportunity. We saw in Kurume, in Fukuoka in July this year, that record-breaking rainfall caused mudslides, caused flooding. The Japan Meteorological Agency was quoted saying during the deluge that it is raining like never before. And this is all the time through the same summer that we had intense heat here in Japan and around the world. I believe we will see more of this, not less. On the left here, we have Greenland. This landscape should be covered in ice, and these dogs are running in water. And yet on the right, we have California, where this lake should be full of water. Since 1824, science has been building the prediction that humans can cause climate change. And 200 years later, we are now affecting the weather like never before, pushing extremes in every region across the globe. And I'll be honest with everyone, when I look at the expanded picture here, it hits me on a personal level for two reasons. I was born in 1980. Keep that among ourselves here. And I was looking forward to a comfortable retirement. But it's likely now that's going to be really very, very hot. But the second way I see this chart is my niece was born 3 years ago in 2020. And she is going to have it a lot worse and can do nothing about it right now without us making change. As we've said, without making significant changes, the current forecast is that we will exceed 1.5 degrees C within 5 years, which we really need to stay below, I think, as we all know, to avoid the catastrophic and potentially irreversible changes of climate change. And putting us all in context, the current targets by governments, the current targets by companies, by subnational actors, if all of those come to fruition on time with the desired impact, we will achieve about a 2.1 warming, still well above our threshold. So more is needed, and more is needed faster. The future can look a little bit bleak, but we have the capacity to avert this future for ourselves and our families, our communities, whatever our reason. through making smart business choices, but we need to act fast. Japan sources around 20% of its electricity from renewable sources. And it's about the same amount as the Democratic Republic of Congo, which last I looked was outside of the G20. Slightly behind France and Belgium, above the United States, all of which are lagging the global average of 25%. The important thing to note here is that there is an enormous opportunity, domestically and globally. This is a global problem we need to solve. Japan and the world combined needs approximately 37 trillion US dollars between now and 2030. We are about 24 trillion US dollars short. Each year we are short, that cumulative shortfall grows. We can all ask ourselves the question, do we want a piece of this investment that's all around us and that is critical to our own well-being? Bringing this back to the personal level, I grew up in Great Britain, close to the sea. These lights show where high tide will be in an island off the coast of Great Britain in our relatively near future. If we don't change the course we're on, we'll see this. And I would like to avoid this. And I think we can. I think we can by reimagining how and why we do business. I think we can by having the courage to be part of the solution. These are days of great consequence. How we got here is somewhat irrelevant. We are here. And everybody in this room, everybody listening online has great power, phenomenal power. We have the power to invest and make a return. We have the power to influence each other in this space, our political actors, those that need to. We have the power to think about what is possible as we look at a very uncertain future. We have the power to accelerate that energy transition that is the capacity in the way that we will avoid uncertainty in our future. So I invite everybody here to aggressively approach being part of the solution and profiting from the clean energy transition that will happen. The question we ask, and we're all asking ourselves, is this transition will happen. Will it happen quickly enough? We can and we must directly influence the answer to that question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Porter. 1980, a baby born then, and a baby born 2020. That diagram was very easy to understand in terms of understanding the impact in Japan. We still have a major gap before achieving renewable energy 100%. It's often talked of as a challenge, but you talked of this as an opportunity, and I think this is a very important message for Japan. Thank you very much for that. So, we'll move to the panel discussions. Session 1 is on acceleration of decarbonization. We have representatives of businesses and university that take very ambitious approaches. Moderator is CDP Worldwide Japan Sales and Marketing Partnership Lead, Ms. Emi Matsukawa. Over to you, madam. Thank you very much, Ms. Okubo. This is the first panel discussion. JCI, as a NSA, is trying to achieve 1.5 degrees as quickly as possible. And as a non-SA organization, JCI has been continuing discussions as to what we can do. The 1.5 degrees target is set by an increasing number of companies. We have panelists here today representing companies who are trying to accelerate things even further to achieve the net zero by 2040. They have very ambitious goals. And also as a public university. It's a different position, but they're trying to take on this very difficult challenge. So let me introduce the panelists from the person next to me. Mr. Masakatsu Takahashi, Vice President, ESG Global Action Promotion, ESG Division of Kao Corporation. And next to him is from RICO, we have Mikako Suzuki, Corporate Officer in charge of ESG and Risk Management. Look forward to having this discussion with all of you. And next to her is Professor Nobuyoshi Esaki, President, Totori University of Environmental Peace. And to the extreme left is Mr. Ichiro Aoyagi, SVP, Head of Solution Service Strategic Unit, the Global Business Solution Business Group, Fujitsu Limited. That was a mouthful. And I am Emi Matsukawa, Lead of Sales and Marketing and Partnerships at CDP Worldwide Japan. And we only have 50 minutes. And so we have to be rigid. We have to be very punctual. So I might be speaking fast. I'd like to ask for your kind cooperation. And also to the panelists. So we'd like to start right away. We'd like to have everyone introduce themselves, your role in the organization, and the present status in terms of targets and approaches being taken. Within 4 minutes or so, could we have everyone speak? In the order that I introduce the speakers, we'd like to proceed. So we start with Mr. Takahashi from Kao.
All right, thank you very much. Please go ahead. Thank you very much for the kind introduction. My name is Takahashi from Kao Corporation. Thank you very much for inviting me to this session. It's a great honor. And if I may introduce myself, I belong to the ESG division and ESG-related policies, strategies. I'm responsible for formulating them, and I'm also responsible for implementing these policies and actions, and specifically climate change, the topic of main topic of today's meeting, and the biodiversity and the human rights. We take up these topics, and transparency of products, information disclosure in a transparent manner of our company's activities as well as our products. And about decarbonization, I would like to briefly explain about our decarbonization-related measures today at Kao. And as our decarbonization goal, by 2040, we are aiming at achieving zero carbon, and by 2050, carbon negative. We have these challenging goals. 2050, I think, is a carbon zero for many organizations, but the ambition that we have is we want to be a pioneer in decarbonization related activities. We have this ambition. And in the case of Kao, our main business is B2C. We mainly sell household products sold in stores like supermarkets, and we also have a B2B chemical business. Therefore, we have a target of 1,000 tons. We want to contribute to CO2 reduction by 10 million tons. So that's the social contribution we want to make, contribute to society through reduction of CO2, a reduction by 10 million tons by 2030. Next slide, please. And specifically, if you take a look at our stakeholders, where is CO2 emitted? We call that hotspot, CO2 emission hotspots. And as you can see, Scope 1 and 2 relates to production. That only accounts for 7%. On the other hand, upstream raw material procurement accounts for 37%. And consumers using our products, they account for 42%. To be more specific, our company shampoos and detergents and so forth. When you use our products, you use electricity and you also use water and so forth. So you have to pay your water and utility bills when you use our products. We are taking various countermeasures in that regard. And please take a look at the blue portion of the screen. These are the measures we are taking. And for Scope 1 and 2, we are making efforts towards energy conservation and promoting the use of renewable energy. And for raw materials, we are trying to reduce usage of raw materials. And with regards to usage on the right-hand side, we want to promote sustainable products, products that can be used in lower temperature, products where you don't have to shovel so much. And for Scope 1 and 2, we are able to proceed in line with our plan. But if you take a look at Scope 3, unfortunately, we must say we need to make more effort. And as a person responsible, I strongly feel that our company's effort alone, of course, we will make effort to develop better products, but we have to cooperate with stakeholders, not just by our company alone. Promoting renewable energy, trying to change the behavior of our consumers. These kinds of activities are necessary. And developing products that can be used with less rinsing, and that may promote the usage of more renewable energy and so forth. And when it comes to supplier engagement upstream, through communication, we are taking action there, but there's no low-hanging fruit. We cannot enjoy any benefit overnight. We are tenaciously continuing our efforts, though. This concludes my brief explanation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Takahashi. The consumers also have to cooperate in order to achieve the target. Next, from RICO, we have Ms. Suzuki. Over to you.
Thank you. My name is Suzuki from RICO. ESG and risk management are my responsibility. And at RICO, having joined as an SE, but I've been in sales for all these years, and for the past 5 years, I'm in charge of ESG. And most recently, without ESG, you cannot go into business negotiation. So the importance of this role, I do feel very, very strongly. So just briefly, I'd like to talk about our efforts at RICO on decarbonization. In 2017, RICO made the carbon neutral declaration by 2050. And for the first time as a Japanese company, we have joined RE100. And by 2020, well below 2 degrees to 1.5 degree certification was acquired. So back then, 1.5 degrees. When you wanted to achieve that level right away, then domestic factories would all have to be shut down. So that was the scale of the impact, but with the support of the management, SBT 1.5, we have to get there, and that was the determination and the resolve of the management. So that's why we set it at this level. Renewable energy is being deployed on a planned fashion, and thanks to such efforts, in terms of GHG emissions, science-based target 1.5 degrees threshold has been cleared well comfortably. So that is how we have been making our progress. I talked about RE100, and the renewable threshold is that the criteria is that the renewable energy must have additionality. And in this chart, I don't show you, but when we deploy renewable energy, additionality, we try to integrate renewable energy with additionality. So we also have a target for additionality renewable energy. And when we introduce renewable energy, it's not just the price that matters. three-piece balance, economy, regional attachment, as well as it has to be friendly to the environment. These three conditions are valued. So we have a comprehensive evaluation method that's been developed internally. So we have been deploying renewable energy in a planned fashion like this. And thankfully, we are progressing according to plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to Ms. Suzuki on hearing what you've said. The leader companies should not try to obfuscate or to work based on price. These companies are very willing to be very positive. Since the climate initiative, since it was launched, these companies have played a very active role. Next, we have a public university, and it's the first public university to declare net zero. We have from Tottori University of Environmental Studies, Professor Esaki. Thank you very much. I'm president of the Tottori University of Environmental Studies. My name is Nobuyoshi Esaki. Harmony between people, society, and nature. We want to create such human resources, and we also promote academic studies toward this end. It was established in 2001. In 2012, the university became a public university jointly established by Tottori Prefecture and Tottori City. It has two faculties, the Faculty of Environment and the Faculty of Business Administration and Postgraduate Master's program. We have 1,400 students and staff. It's a relatively small university. This time we have proposed together with Tottori City, and we have been selected as a priority decarbonization area. And the target area, Wakabadai area, where the university is located, and the town of Saji, about 20 kilometers away, with the aim of achieving zero CO2 emissions from electricity in the residential and commercial sector by 2030. And the university will install solar power and convert to ZEB, zero-emission building, as well as utilize local decarbonization initiatives for education and research. And with the selection as a priority decarbonization area, we have decided to participate in UN's Race to Zero. And it's the third university to participate, but the first public university to participate. And as shown here, a working group has been set up. And education quality and the results of that, we're trying to keep that level and also formulating plans how to move forward. We will complete formulation by the end of the year, and we want to announce. And we're listening to the voices of students, and they tell us a lot of things. In proceeding with the decarbonization, they want to have a more enriching university life, and they want to be a role model for other universities. That is also what they tell us. As at the end of November, COP28 will be held in Dubai, and two of our students will be participating, and Tottori Prefecture will subsidize us for this purpose. There are two photographs here on the left-hand side. We have someone who will be going to the Antarctic as part of the Antarctic regional expedition, and they will be researching climate change as seen in corals. And on the right-hand side, we show the Goat Club goats. We have a funny club in our university, and the golf clubs raises goats. And they are a very important symbol tying our universities. They do burp, and they do emit methane gas, but we have only several goats, so please be lenient with us and allow us to keep these goats. Thank you very much. I think there are a lot of leads included, concentrated in your presentation as to what we can do, and especially the young people from universities. It's very promising that new ideas come from universities, and throughout the life of human beings. The younger people will have to live in tougher times, longer, tougher times. So a regional approach is a very good example of what can be done. Thank you very much. And last but not least, Mr. Aoyagi from Fujitsu, please.
Thank you very much. My name is Aoyagi from Fujitsu. And as Matsukawa-san mentioned, the Solution Service Strategy Division is where I'm responsible for. And sustainability transformation-related business strategy, that's what I'm responsible for in my organization. For the past 10 years, we've been responsible for data-related business, mainly data platform. And as we're working on these businesses, ESG and the carbon analysis, we recognize that we need more and more of this kind of analysis, and carbon management needs exist, and these needs are increasing, particularly in American European companies. Now, what actions are we taking at Fujitsu? I would like to explain. In September, Fujitsu Climate and Energy Vision was announced, and this vision, we originally announced this vision in 2017, and by 2050, Fujitsu Group, Scope 1 and 2 was to aim at achieving net zero. And we have decided to bring forward this target by 20 years using our technology to the full extent, and global standard knowledge and technology we would like to incorporate, and by so doing we want to bring forward our net zero target by 20 years to fiscal year 2030. We revised our vision. And outside of the scope was the entire value chain. Scope 3, we decided to take Scope 3 related measures as well. And here we are aiming for net zero in FY 2040. And concerning this approach, we obtained SBTI net zero certification in a measurable manner. We came up with the target, and that was highly evaluated by a third-party organization. And we also committed to reduce, so we are committing the fact that Fujitsu is going to reduce the CO2 that we emit. Sorry, there's a time lag, and now you can see the next screen. And this is also what we announced in September, calculation of CO2 emission in WBCSD's PACT program. We are aiming at carbon neutral, and we want to offer some kind of a helpful solution to our customers as well. The rules and regulations are not yet fully in place in that regard. So WBCSD is leading in this area, and new countermeasures and technical challenges we want to take as part of WBCSD's PACT program. We assemble PCs. There is that footprint, and we also have suppliers, business partners at Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. The CO2 emission in this entire network, we want to have an accurate understanding of, and we want to integrate all the information that we have. And by so doing, we want to visualize a life cycle carbon management, and also for the first time through PACT standard, data exchange is now possible between and among different companies. And through this activity, we want to commit to contributing to a new rule-making.
Thank you very much. I believe this will provide a lead to companies as to how they should go about doing this. So we had the leaders discuss, and on a daily basis, action needs to be taken. And as the next question, we'd like to ask about how do you go about taking strategic approaches, and what are the challenges that you are facing in doing so? That is what I'd like to hear about. We'd like to have Ms. Suzuki from RICO, and followed by Professor Esaki from Tottori University.
Ms. Suzuki, please. Thank you. Can you see the screen? Now, today at RICO, by 2030, Scope 1-2 reduction roadmap has been developed, and especially for Scope 3, we have made disclosure. And after developing a scenario and making disclosure means that we are making a commitment to the society. So setting targets or accelerating the targets would also be important, but more specifically, how are we going to be reducing? I think it's very important to paint that roadmap. Top chart is for Scope 1 and 2, and the scenario is shown here. Recent topics include, possibly in Japan, this is a bit premature, but virtual PPA contract has been signed, and it has started operating from August. The place is in August, Kyushu. A company in Kyushu is the one that we have contracted with. So virtual PPA has started from August. Now on Scope 3, our reduction scenario is also in concrete terms and has been disclosed, especially Category 141. We manufacture copying machines. So a topic that I want to share with you today is that in multifunctional copying machines, it's made of huge amounts of plastic material, but still, how can you save space to make it smaller? But in addition to that, we want to make our machines made of renewable or recycled plastics, because that will lead directly to decarbonization. You cannot do this overnight. We've been working on this from 3.5 years ago. So in the industry, I would say that the content of recycled plastic is more than 50%. I would suppose that we have the largest proportion of such recycled plastics. We started 3.5 years ago when we were talking commercial deals in Europe. It has to be a product that uses recycled material more than 50% of the total. That was one of the criteria. So we realized that recycled material leads to decarbonization. So this is something that we have been working on for the past 3.5 years. And in February, more than 50% renewable or recycled material has been included. So in terms of carbon footprint has been lowered by 27%. So there's a lot of impact, a huge impact by incorporating renewable plastics. Climate change and circular economy are oftentimes thought of as two separate things, but if you use this as two legs that support this endeavor, that will be a big contribution to this effort. So like I said, setting targets and accelerating your targets or making upward revisions to your target is important, but in order to achieve that target, what are the measures being used to achieve that target? You have to think of this concretely on practical terms. I think that is what is most important. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's an action that's closely related to businesses as well. You engage with businesses as well. Next, moving to Professor Asaki at Tottori University, please. Thank you. As mentioned earlier, at our university, we have been selected as one of the priority decarbonization regions along with Tottori City. And so we've also decided to participate in the Race to Zero of the United Nations. It's the first university to do so, which is a public university. And we are formulating plans for this. From 2013 to 2022, in the 9 years, we have moved ahead in terms of energy conservation, and we have already achieved a 30% reduction. And this time, in addition to that, Scope 2030, Scope 1 and Scope 2 targets have been set at 620 tons. That's an annual reduction of 5.5%. which is higher than the 4.2% required by the SBT value under the 1.5 degrees target. So it's a quite ambitious number that we're pursuing. And also, as for the approaches taken up until now and what we're about to do in terms of reduction, if we add all of these together in 2030 compared to 2013, the reduction will be 60%, 60%, and this exceeds the national target of 46% reduction. 2013, 2022 figures are shown here. From 2020 to 2030, renewable energy and ZEB introduction, we will be promoting this to achieve the target. And as for Scope 3, the 2030 target for Scope 3 was 1,405 tons. And every year, 2.5% of reduction is what we intend to achieve. It's the same as the level required by the SBT. And as for the breakdown of Scope 3, we've analyzed, and I've shown the categories here. The staff and the professors and students commute, and the paper usage related emissions are very large. We've discovered this. With regard to paper-related emissions, digitalization would solve this. But as for commuting-related, we have to rely on the authorities as well in order to achieve this. So this is very difficult. And we, on a settlement amount basis, we calculate, but we need to obtain calculation based on real emissions. And so with regard to challenges that we have and what we need to take on, there are various issues, but one and two, which I've indicated here, are the large issues, paper-related and commuting-related. And so we want to work hard on this. Thank you very much. The challenges have been elucidated very clearly. Thank you very much. From Fujitsu, Aoyagi-san, please. Strategies and approaches, please. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I'd like to respond from a somewhat different perspective. Challenges for decarbonization, that was your question. Above all, in our case, on a personal note, in our company and amongst our customers as well, and that was mentioned in the keynote speech, how to balance a company growth as well as decarbonization, that we think is the most important point. Decarbonization may end up incurring a large amount of cost, but of the long-term perspective, it's not just a temporary cost, but it's investment towards future competitiveness. On the other hand, where is the core battlefield of the company? What do we prioritize on? We have to be clear on these priorities and try to strike the best balance. Therefore, there are challenges, and on a fact basis, we want to be able to support that kind of digital technology we want to develop and offer. And mainly in Europe and globally, we want to set up new rules so that we can enter into new communities and compete in new communities. That, I think, is required of Japanese companies, and also from a different perspective. I talked about supply chain proof of concept. On a fact basis, we try to collect CO2 information in the supply chain, which means all companies in the supply chain would have to do their part to collect a sufficient amount of information. And this is an investment that will be necessary by SMEs, small and medium-sized enterprises as well. Large companies, they are proactive in investing in improving their competitive advantage. But what happens when companies with not so much competitiveness get into the picture?
Last but not least, Kao, CDP disclosure process. There are about 20,000 companies worldwide that disclose. So you rank them, the evaluation is given to only the top 10. And triple climate, water, and forest, you have been the highest rated for all of these categories. And it's the Kao is the only company to be rated as such. So over to you, please.
Thank you very much. I just heard from three panelists. You raised various challenges. Thank you very much. And Kao Corporation also has many challenges. And some of these challenges may be costly. How do we, under such circumstances, reduce costs as much as possible and generate profit? But if I may respond from a different angle, I showed to you a diagram about our company's supply chain, and there are measures that we can take within our company, and there are countermeasures that have to be tackled together with stakeholders. There are two types of actions that can be taken. And in order to promote ESG, for example, 2040 carbon zero is the goal that we have for Kao Corporation as a whole. That's a company-wide goal, but it's difficult to take a drastic action, but a lot of cost is incurred. On the other hand, when we go home, as a consumer, we have to live our daily lives. I take a look at the news, and as was mentioned before, there was an abnormally hot summer. So I think we all recognize that we are in a crisis, and we wake up every morning and we go to work. And when we go to work, we have to work on cost reduction measures, but at the same time, we have to generate a profit. Under such circumstances, how do we strike the best balance? I think we all have to think about this. And under such circumstances, the power of people, I think, is critical. We all face different and various challenges, but we all recognize a sense of crisis. So let's first work on what we can. That, I think, will be the key. Try to work on low-hanging fruit. And the same can be said for stakeholders, suppliers in the supply chain, and consumers using our products. For all of these stakeholders, how do we cooperate with all of these stakeholders? That, I think, is also an important point. And I may be digressing from the topic of the environment, but concerning human rights, I'm also responsible for human rights in my company. Due diligence, we have to reduce risk in the area of human rights as well. And I have to ask all employees, including factory employees, to cooperate in that regard. This is our goal, so please cooperate. That is not enough. We have to communicate more. We have to make sure that our thought is fully understood. And there's an impressive example that I want to share with you. And when we communicate, and a certain company mentioned that if Kao is seriously taking action, then we will cooperate with you. There was a company that said so to us. We were very delighted to hear that. So this is our goal. Please cooperate. That's not the only kind of communication we should have. We want to make sure that our thoughts and passion is fully communicated.
Thank you very much. The Climate Change Initiative is such that it's a gathering of different stakeholders trying to pursue a certain sense of direction. And I believe what you said has resonated. I'd like to turn to the audience. We would like for you to use the tool that you used earlier to obtain your views. And as large companies, I'm sure you have things that you're struggling with, as well as the large companies represented here. For acceleration, what is the hurdle that you have to overcome in terms of the company or in terms of you individually? What's the largest hurdle? There are 5 options. First is great. First is cost, sorry. And earlier on, there was mention made of the fact that it's very costly. And secondly, is human resources and knowledge. And thirdly, as Rico has mentioned, the understanding on the part of the top management and also the local government, and then and others. And so if you could select one of the options, please. Okay, are we ready? So please do participate. The results have come out. It's interesting. The numbers are still changing. You're working hard. It's not a competition, but 890? A lot of you have voted. Thank you very much. This is very realistic. There's a sense of reality here. It's an interesting tool. The panelists, could we have your views on the result? Aoyagi-san, please. You're staring at the screen.
The percentage is changing, but understanding of top executives, I think that was the highest response. Much more than cost, I think people are expecting a lot from leadership. So these two main answers account for more than 30%. So it's a very important challenge. Suzuki-san, what do you think about this result?
At Rico, because you had a lot of support from the top management, so things moved forward. Yes, the blue section, understanding of the top executives. Well, I was anticipating that there's going to be more people voting for red, but this was quite a bit of a surprise. SBT 1.5 degrees, when we decided on that, we, the practical members, thought that, well, this is a bit tough. Rather than 1.5, it should be 2 degrees, we said. But they said, the management said that, what are you going to do if you're not going to set it at 1.5? That was something that really moved us forward from the founding of the company. And in the 1980s, the fifth generation President Sakurai advocated for environment-oriented business management. Environment conservation and profit generation must be achieved at the same time. This is a philosophy that is really taken root in the company. So the management is giving us support. That makes it easy for us to do.
If we look at the results, the understanding of the top executives seems to be the major issue. For the top executives to understand is a very important issue. It's a major bar that has to be overcome. As a business management matter, there's a tendency to perceive of climate countermeasures for this. And I believe Hasebe-san feels that way. I believe that the understanding of the top is very important. It's the core. And human resources had 15%. Esaki-san, please. The top management. I believe that we're going around in circles here, but people have high expectations, and I'm encouraged. And human resources, having this score is very impressive. From Tottori University, educating such resources is high expectations of that. And innovation, this is an area where Fujitsu can be active.
Yes. Actually, I thought the percentage is a bit lower than I thought, but I think it means innovation is not a challenge, but it's something that they expect from us. So I try to be optimistic. Maybe that's true, though. The innovation capability of Japan, I think there are tremendous opportunities there, so please be confident. Thank you very much for your cooperation. Interesting result.
Thank you very much. The next challenge, or the next there are lots of challenges, and one company alone would find it very difficult to overcome these challenges. So at JCI, we try to communicate this to policymakers as voices of our members, and We'd like to hear about what your expectations are in terms of policy. Fujitsu, Aoyagi-san, Rico, and Kao, Esaki-san, in that order, please. So Aoyagi-san, please.
I would like to mention 2 points. First, various reports have to be submitted and prepared to manage CO2. There are reporting and disclosure requirements in Europe and the United States. RD would have to be implemented from 2025, and we have to make sure that we don't have many regulations conflicting with each other, and the same for companies. We don't want a mechanism whereby we in Japan have to pay extra cost. And the second point I already touched upon before, based on facts, we need to build a database to manage CO2. And here inclusivity becomes important. There are organizations playing an important function in the supply chain, although they cannot necessarily invest a large amount. So maybe tax incentives should be introduced for such organizations so that we can manage the situation in the society as a whole.
Suzuki-san, please. So 2 points from me. As we heard from Fujitsu, regulation, they all come from Europe. Europe do this first. But we want the Japanese government to take the lead, setting targets and goals. And the Paris Agreement, we need to have the Japanese government set a high goal consistent with the Paris Agreement. And we need to have renewable energy, electricity sources to be secured.
Thank you very much. Takahashi-san, please.
I may have mentioned something similar before, but Scope 3 accounts for 90% in the case of Kao Corporation. And one of the main topics of today's summit is the percentage of renewable energy. That has to increase, otherwise we will not be able to reduce CO2 emission. That is the point I want to strongly emphasize. In the society as a whole, we need to increase the percentage of renewable energy. Otherwise, we really will not be able to reduce CO2 emission. And there was mention about regulations and rules. Carbon tax is not yet introduced in Japan. Under such circumstances, companies have to take voluntary measures. That is the key in Japan. Under such a situation, this is not the best way to mention this, but companies that do not make effort, they should not enjoy the most advantage. Rather, companies here today, we are all the companies that are making effort. So there needs to be support that is a benefit or is advantage for those companies to make effort. And another point is, in my personal opinion, as a company, of course, we are making effort, but the government should not be too complacent or presumptuous. But we want the government to take leadership. We want a leader that will strongly lead us. I did share with you my personal opinions. We need a politician who can take strong leadership, maybe a young politician who can take a strong leadership. I hope there will be such a person.
Thank you very much. I'm very grateful for those words. Esaki-san, please. We're very grateful that we've been designated as a result of a joint proposal with Tottori City as a priority decarbonization area. We're very grateful for that. Up until now, there have been different people who have offered to be chosen, 187, and only 62 have been selected, although 187 have applied. The Environment Ministry is trying hard, but we would like to ask them to secure more of a budget so that we have more joining our effort. And as Suzuki-san mentioned earlier, in our country toward the Paris Agreement, our approaches are a bit lukewarm at this moment. Power source decarbonization is something that needs to be sped up. Thank you very much. We've had views from all of the panelists. PRI met on Tuesday as Martin is chair, and at the annual meeting, Prime Minister Kishida personally talked about ESG investment, and he was very enthusiastic. As for public pension fund signing PRI was also good news, and there was a round of applause from the hall of the conference. So we hope that we can make this something with substance, and we want to put together the views of the leaders so we can communicate as a JCI. So last, we'd like to have, as a wrap-up, could we have a word from each of you, a message from each of you. This summer was such that, as Mr. Sueyoshi mentioned, we had a boiling situation. It wasn't just global warming, and there's no waiting, but things are not taking a favorable turn. So, and Kao said that people said that they would join if they could call out for people who would volunteer. Suzuki-san, Esaki-san, Kao, Fujitsu, in that order, could we have a word from you each, please?
Suzuki-san, please. Let me repeat what I said at the beginning. Setting targets and accelerating targets are important, but more important is be practical, speed up your effort. That is where our focus is. Not only inside our company, we want to work with our customers and our suppliers. We want to proactively work with them. Thank you. Mr. Esaki, please.
As I have been mentioning, with the Totori City, we have been designated as a priority decarbonization area, and Race to Zero of the UN is what we've decided to join on this occasion. And at our university, the students and faculty and staff are willing to work full swing toward the decarbonization. I think this triggered all of this, all triggered this on the part of our staff and faculty. And there are some issues left in terms of decarbonization. JCI members are very advanced in this area, so we'd like to learn from them, and we'd like to keep working hard. And towards decarbonization going forward, how active our students will be in society is very important. So we want to do a proper job of educating our students. We seek your kind cooperation. That's very important. Thank you very much. Kao, please, the real leader here.
Europe and Japan, if I may compare us with Europe. And Europe, as was mentioned before, there are regulations and tax. That's what they are promoting. And they feel a sense of duty. There are mandates. And even if you don't want to, you are forced to take measures. And that's how actions are promoted in Europe. In Japan, we don't have so many regulations. And a lot is left up to the voluntary efforts of companies. And ultimately, we are not able to make a significant contribution. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I want to say that rules and regulations should be introduced. Every one of us, we need to have a strong sense of crisis. And we don't see this in the world yet. But if each and every one of us become more passionate and enthusiastic, then we can do more. If we can do something like that in Japan, I think we can be a good role model, a global role model. So let us all cooperate with each other so that we can make our most contribution. Then finally, Mr. Aoyagi, closing remarks, please, to close the panel discussion. So As was mentioned from the beginning, we are in a serious crisis when it comes to climate. Climate crisis is the key word, but I think crisis leads to new opportunity. There's platonic change, and there's a lot we have to do. And risks or a crisis may lead to new business opportunity. And as the person from Rico mentioned before, Japan, I think, is very good at recycling. Secondary or tertiary use of products. A circular economy is a concept that's spreading in Europe, but I think we have similar capability in Japan when it comes to recycling. So we want to contribute more in this area. So that's what we think we should do more in Japan. And let us train more young people. And then I think we still have a bright future. So that's the kind of society we want to create with all of you.
Thank you very much. We've had outstanding messages from all the panelists in the past 50 minutes, and JCI members. Cooperation among NSAs will become increasingly important, so we solicit your further cooperation in terms of your activities. And thank you very much for your cooperation with regard to the questions using the tool. This interactive process was very fun to do. Thank you very much to the panelists. And we have a round of applause for the panelists, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to all of the participants of Session 1. If you please return to your seats, thank you very much. There was a very detailed discussion and information sharing about what each company is doing, and international initiatives are being taken by a Japanese local university. Thank you very much for the bright news. Now let's start the second panel discussion on the theme of co-creation and cooperation in decarbonization. We have experts representing local governments, companies, life insurance, and so forth. The moderator is Mr. Ken Tanaka, Climate and Energy Group Officer of WWF Japan. If you're prepared, Mr. Tanaka, if you can please start. Thank you very much. Can you hear me? Thank you very much. Thank you for your kind introduction from WWF Japan. I'm Ken Tanaka, responsible for, I'm a Climate and Energy Group Officer. In this session, we would like to discuss about co-creation and cooperation with other stakeholders towards decarbonization. Co-creation and cooperation is difficult to be promoted by just one organization, and these were some of the voices raised in Session 1 as well. In order to accelerate decarbonization, co-creation and cooperation, we think, are indispensable. There are 4 panelists today, and we would like these 4 panelists to share with us actual examples or case studies of use cases of co-creation and cooperation. I would like to introduce the panelists. Sitting next to me is Corporate Officer Division, General Manager, Mobility Business Division, Mitsubishi Motors Corporation, Mr. Kazuaki Iwamoto. My name is Iwamoto. Thank you very much. And Daiichi Life Holdings, Inc., Director, Managing Executive Officer, Chief Sustainability Officer, Mr. Hidehiko Sogano. My name is Sogano. Thank you very much. And Switch Association of Sustainability Director, Ms. Mana Saza. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to see you all. And Assistant Chief Carbon Neutral Promotion Project Headquarters, Hamamatsu City, Mr. Takashi Togi. My name is Togi. Thank you very much. So these are the 4 panelists for Session 2. And we want to ask the panelists to introduce themselves, but let's use the tool to have you respond to a question. The question I have is, do you co-create and collaborate with other organizations in advancing your decarbonization efforts? Is a very direct question. The options are yes, already, we do. Looking for collaborators, not yet. There are 4 options. We would like to receive as many answers as possible. And the question as well as the results, I think, are available on the screen. What do you think about this result? More than 220 people have responded. We see a lot of red. Red is yes already. Very encouraging result. And next comes will do. And looking for collaborators, some people have chosen light blue as well. And there are also people who chose not yet. So outstandingly high percentage of respondents answered yes already, red. So what do you think about this response?
Well, this many people already working on this is very encouraging, but we'll discuss this later. But looking for a partner, I'm sure that many people are still looking for partners. So as we make presentation like this, with whom and at what opportunities can we have contacts and opportunities to work together? I hope that this event will provide such an opportunity.
So we want to find co-creation opportunities, and we want the panelists to introduce to us use cases. We look forward to the explanation by the panelists. Thank you very much for responding to the question using the tool. Now, we would like to call upon the panelists to give a short presentation. First, could you please introduce initiatives in your organization using slides? Mr. Iwamoto first, please.
Can you show the slides, please? Over to you. My name is Iwamoto from Mitsubishi Motors. We are a mobility business, and Mobility Business.com was launched 3 years ago. It's a young organization. We're going to be showing you our outputs, but this is something that we could not have done without a partner. Let me show you some examples. First, this is collaboration with Japan Post. Electric vehicles. Of course, we have been selling electric vehicles from some time ago, but because the range is short, people say that it cannot be used. So even before these cars are deployed, people were not moving ahead. How usable are these cars? Nobody took that data, so we took the initiative to disclose the data, open the data, so that actual place where mail is delivered. We selected 2 locations to start this. As we did, how usable are these cars? Well, these cars can be used in most of the cases. Of course, if you have to travel long distances, sometimes it needs to be recharged. But normally, these cars can be used without a hitch. So these cars are being deployed more and more by Japan Post. And based on this data, as we collected the data, which would be the most rational ways to use the EVs and how much CO2 reduction can be achieved as a result of that usage, switching from gasoline to EV, how much operating costs can be reduced. Well, this is the type of data that we offer and disclose, because deliveries, well, you travel a set distance throughout the year. So this is the area where EVs can be used most efficiently, because you know where and how long you will travel every day. So we want to be offering this data, and it should not be limited just to Japan. So with the support of MIC, Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, we had a demonstration project in Thailand, and the conclusion was the same. It's usable, it can be used. And because it's hot in Thailand, but even with air conditioning, these cars can be used for mail delivery service. Next page, please. This is slightly different. We work with partners to decarbonize. Left-hand side is V1G, or we call it dynamic pricing it does is customers on which day of the week the car has to be fully charged, by what time. If they give us that information through smartphones, we can select the time that is the most efficient. And that is the time that we select for recharging the car. And we have just started this demonstration project. Karuza is a UK company, a systems company that we are working with as a partner. Of course, we can do this on our own if we tried, but we would like to partner with others. I think it will be rational and reasonable to try to work with a partner. And on the right-hand side, the top portion is our collaboration with Hitachi. We are the ones that that produce the EVs in large scale, Outlander, and the battery. It's already been 10 years. Also, high batteries are being returned, and the recent customers have not returned high batteries yet because it is still being used. And Outlander PHV high batteries are stored in these 3 racks, and they can be reused. And in certain locations, these batteries can be used for peak cutting, and the demonstration project is to be started soon. And the bottom one is battery packs. There's a module inside after disaggregating from the one in the car, and this is being used for street lighting. You don't need lighting, so maintenance is easier. That's a benefit from using car batteries. And it has 4 kilowatt hours, so 300 kilowatts for smartphone recharging or lighting, and for other purposes, this module can be used. And we're working with a venture startup company called Mirai Lab. So in this fashion, we're accelerating by focusing on speed. We're working with our partners to start on these new projects. That is all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In order to increase the use of electric vehicles, you talked about how to use electric vehicles more efficiently. You also talked about high batteries and how to be able to use them as long as possible. So these were the 3 main measures introduced. Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Sogano from Daiichi Life, from the life insurance sector.
Earlier on, Mr. Skancke from PRI talked about the role as institutional investors, and I was, if you could try to recall what he said as you look at this. This time, towards net zero, we've started a transition plan, which we've written, and it was published in August. And it's a plan for transition. It's not just about setting targets. Toward the targets, what are we going to do specifically? And what are the things that we are not doing at the moment and that we need to do in the future? We felt that we needed to write this down properly. Daiichi Life belongs to G Funds, what was mentioned earlier. It's a global financial institutions circle of institutions that are aiming for net zero. And we're the first member of G-Funds from Japan. And in Europe, there have been different efforts to formulate rules toward the net zero. The world has rules, and we wanted to participate in all of that and take part in it. Toward the bottom left, there are 3 circles which are overlapping. And of course, we are an operating company, an insurance company, and we should try to reduce gas and electricity, gas. And for our customers, we have money that we keep in custody, and we decide where we invest this money into. And we have a role as institutional investor. And the blue circle is Europe's attempts to make rules, but we want to participate. We want to have our voices heard in this attempt, and so we're a part of G funds. So this time, collaboration and co-creation is the theme, and it's important to combine different people. Please turn to the next page. And the next page shows our transition plan. And this is the first page of our transition plan. And as an operating company, as an institutional investor, what we're doing are written. And proper governance is, of course, very important. But more than that, strategies and metrics and targets, when we formulate these, how to work on other companies so that we can work together. In the middle, it says engagement. And what this is talking about is the fact that when we make investments, the investees, we talk to the investees so we can work together toward net zero. So we think together with our investees. There was a questionnaire survey at the outset, and there was 10% or so who said they were looking for partners. And we promote engagement in different forms, and I believe that there's a potential for entities to become partners. So I'd like to go into more detail later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Engagement seems to be the keyword mentioned by Mr. Sogano. Let us discuss in more detail later on. Ms. Sasa from Switch Association of Sustainability. Thank you very much. My name is Mana Sasa, Director of Switch Association of Sustainability. Switch is a young organization. You may not know what kind of organization we are. So first, we would like to introduce our organization. And to live on one planet, what should we do beyond generations and organizations? So that's what we are working on. There are many young people working on this platform as we try to reduce CO2, new way of life, living, and new way to work. We have a dialogue on these topics amongst young people so that we can support climate action. And young people are taking leadership in two types of co-creation activity that we would like to introduce to. One is international activity, and another activity I want to introduce to you today is a domestic activity in Japan. You may have realized that I don't speak Japanese well. Most of my time I studied at the international school. I'm sorry, I'm not good at speaking Japanese. Before I introduce our organization Switch, internationally, what kind of action are we young people taking? Actually, COP26 2 years ago, from 2020 to 2021, it was postponed by 1 year because of COVID-19. Do you remember that? And there was no COP meeting for more than for close to 2 years. That, I think, had a significant impact on all of us globally. So who suffer from the most impact? It's us young generation and children as well. The voice of young people, it's difficult to be heard in international conferences and also within companies. There is no system where the voice of young people can be fully heard. So 330 youth environmental experts from 140 countries participated and had a mock COP online. COP26. If young people take leadership in discussing in COP26, what would happen? That was the concept based on which we had an online mock COP. And there was making climate change education compulsory. That was what was requested the most. So what should we do? How do we have to change our lives? How do we have to do our business? So the most number of young people voted for the fact that climate change education has to become compulsory. But this organization, Switch, is not just a place for young people to discuss. UK government, Italian government, and UNESCO, with the support of all of these countries and organizations, more than 20 countries, including Japan, signed to the climate change education. And we also have a education summit. Minister of Environment and the Minister of Education will be invited. So if you're attending COP25, please feel free to discuss with us. So gradually there's more and more opportunity where the voice of young people can be heard. And please take a look at the second point. There was a big step up last year, and that is in COP27, formally some seats were allocated for young people, and that was a big impact for young people. And people in the South Hemisphere, in developing countries, we were able to listen to the voice of young people in these countries. And COP28, we are also going to participate. And what kind of education is necessary for young people? That is a topic mainly we want to discuss in COP28. Internationally, the voice of young people have to be heard more and more, but gradually we are seeing that happen. And why we've been able to make this progress, I want to mention in more detail later on. Next slide, please. Now, so young people can express their opinions more and more in international conferences. So that was the international use case. How about in Japan? Switch, our organization, is taking leadership. And the climate and energy and environmental ministers conference was held in Sapporo in Hokkaido. So we went to Sapporo, and Sapporo City is very advanced when it comes to environmental measures, but they didn't have so much opportunity to cooperate and co-create with the citizens. So we proposed that young people, as well as universities and citizens and various people, can cooperate towards promoting action. So we decided to create that kind of a framework. And together with young people, what kind of action do we want to promote? We listed up 10 types of actions. And there's a committee to focus on the particularly important one of these actions. Governor of Hokkaido and Sapporo City Mayor and State Minister of Environment. All of these people have been able to support our activity, and as a result, we've been able to make a lot of progress. So it's not just us young people saying, please do this. We young people want to cooperate with other stakeholders. That, I think, is the key point. Within Shibuya Ward in central Tokyo, we are also we just kicked off a decarbonization urban development initiative. I want to explain in more detail about this activity later on. Thank you very much for this opportunity today. Ms. Sasa, thank you very much. Education is extremely important, and young people of other countries are mentioning that as well. So human resources is important. A lot of people responded so in the question that I just asked using the tool. Next, Mr. Togi of Hamamatsu City, please.
My name is Togi, Carbon Neutrality Promotion Office at Hamamatsu City. First, today we're talking about co-creation and collaboration. What is the city of Hamamatsu doing? Let me just explain this. First, solar power deployment. Well, the amount is the largest in Hamamatsu across Japan. 300 hours, 2,300 hours is the hours of sunshine we have in Hamamatsu, so that's very favorable. So public and private sectors have worked together to proactively deploy photovoltaic power, and we have been certified as being #1 in Japan in terms of the volume of deployment. What have we done? I brought 2 examples. The top one is the development of a smart town. Together with Ichijo Construction House, they are the operator. And in center of Hamamatsu, there was a plot of land which became vacant. So we tried to convert that into a smart town. And that was certified by the city and supporting this large area development. This is 106,000 square meters. This is quite large. And 180 ZEH housing will be built, and condominiums with Enifarm equipment are being built. So that is under construction right now. And Ion or daycare centers are to be brought in so that energy self-sufficiency rate is going to be 100% in this smart town. Now, Grid 8, public facilities are being used. Public facilities, oftentimes there are 2 separate facilities standing one next to the other, but we are bundled them together, and we have new power producer in Hamamatsu. So with the new power producer being in the intermediary, we want to maximize consumption of energy being produced locally and to promote BCP. Now, these are recent developments, collaboration and co-creation. On collaboration, Hamamatsu Region Decarbonization Management Supporting Consortium, this is a long name, which was launched in August of this year. So this is collaboration, City of Hamamatsu, as well as Chamber of Commerce and Hamamatsu Area Innovation Promotion, as well as local banks, Shizuoka Bank, as well as Shinkin banks of the locality, and Hamamatsu new power producer, which Hamamatsu City invests in. So major stakeholders have been brought together for this consortium. And as we heard from Mr. Aoyagi of Fujitsu, small and medium-sized enterprises, Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, if you want to decarbonize all the way, it's practically difficult. So how can you run your business with decarbonization in mind? We brought together these stakeholders to talk about how decarbonization management can be supported. As you see here, the Ministry of the Environment often says that decarbonization management is about knowing, measuring, and reducing. So consistently assisting the companies is something that would be required by local companies. So we have this consortium. On the right-hand side, which is co-creation, we have Hamamatsu City Carbon Neutrality Promotion Council, which was reorganized last month in September. A few years ago, we had Smart City Promotion Council, and that was reorganized with a new name. What it does is companies in Hamamatsu City, as well as other large companies that has headquarters in Tokyo, or in the same prefecture, but outside of Hamamatsu City, we have various companies being members of this council. We also have universities, research institutes, and financial institutes. About 200 companies have become members of this council. What it does is that there is public-private collaboration to develop projects that contributes to decarbonization, and then there is going to be demonstration and implementation. So this is about the project So cross-company collaboration and needs, sees, matching will get started, and we will have networking. And eventually, as a decarbonization project, the project will be implemented in the city of Hamamatsu. So from these two perspectives, collaboration, co-creation, local decarbonization, and local green transformation are being promoted in the city of Hamamatsu. So that is what the city of Hamamatsu is working on most recently. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, you talked about consortium, and that is to multiple sectors, local regional banks and chambers of commerce, including new power producers. It's a consortium to support decarbonization activity of companies. And the consortium, I think you mentioned 155 members, and you're trying to create a new project. These were the two main activities you introduced. Thank you very much. Now, thank you very much for introducing your initiatives. I now have a question. The first question is, it may be taken for granted, but why is co-creation and cooperation important? What do you think are the advantages of co-creation and cooperation? Mr. Iwamoto and then Mr. Togi, in that order, if you could please respond. And as you work on your initiatives, compared with co-creation and cooperation with other stakeholders, and on the one hand, and working alone, what are the advantages of co-creation and cooperation?
So allow me to say first, speed. Whatever the organization is, if you are to do something new, whether you have human resources in-house that is required, you don't. So if you want to solve this issue quickly, you need to have people with skills, team and organization. You need to work with teams and organization that already has such skills to speed up. I talked about my organization being 3.5 years old, and we are working with Japan Post, as well as in Thailand, as well as reuse of batteries. We were able to do this quickly because we partnered with people who had such expertise, identifying those partners and working with those partners. That was the secret of what we have achieved. And if you wanted to do this on your own, you need to hire people with skills and train those people. But when you are starting something new, you don't know whether it's going to be successful. If it fails, what would happen to the people that you trained? People with skills, those specialists with the same awareness coming together in a team to work towards the same shared goal. That is what is important about developing people. And for the company, you don't want to spend on unnecessary resources. So that was also good in partnering.
Thank you very much. Speed, I think, was an important point, which was the theme of session 1, acceleration of decarbonization. Various knowledge and skills would have to be collected by multiple organizations, and that way we may be able to accelerate decarbonization. And if things do not go well, you will be able to make more speedy decisions if there's co-creation.
Thank you. So what are the advantages was the question. But for a local government, as an organization, I think there's a limit to how much you can do on your own. We have tax revenue, and within that limited budget, you have to do all sorts of things. So what you can do is going to be obviously limited. So we need to work with citizens and businesses, financial institutions and research institutes. There are a variety of stakeholders. We need to use and leverage their capabilities just to get to the starting point. I think that is where we stand. And as I said, on co-creation, the council is such a good example. So getting to the start line with these people, if we were on our own, what we can do is only 0 or 1. But by working with these partners, we can get to 10 or 100. So we start with partnering and leveraging the power of other people.
Thank you very much. On the other hand, you introduced a consortium, and multiple sectors are getting together in a consortium. And the role of your city would be to gather as many stakeholders as possible and facilitate. So what do you think is a role? One word, please.
Well, in terms of the role, yes, of course, we have the facilitation role, but Hamamatsu City, we often talk about, why not? Let's give it a try. That's the spirit of Hamamatsu. And this kind of a spirit is really penetrating across the society. So businesses also come to us saying, why not try this? Try doing this. We also facilitate, but it's a matter of how we can harness the ideas and the powers of businesses. I think that is what our mission is.
Listening to what you just mentioned, I think it's very similar to what the JCI is trying to do, promoting the participation of as many non-state actors as possible. Thank you very much. Next, I want to ask the question to Ms. Saza, but before asking you to respond, Ms. Saza, there's another question I want to ask using the real-time communication tool. This is somewhat of a quiz. You mentioned that there's a lot of sensation amongst young people taking action. And the question is, what percentage of the world's population is accounted for by Generation Z, people between the age of 11 years old to 27 years old? So please choose from 10%, 20%, 30%, or 40%. What percentage of the world population do you think consists of Generation Z? Sugano-san, what do you think?
I pressed 3. I chose 3. 30%. We're getting all the answers now.
Sugano-san, you chose 30%, and most people are choosing 30%, and many people have chosen 20% as well. Thank you very much for responding. 10%, 40%, not so many people chose these two answers. Then, Saga-san, what is the response? Number 4, 40%. That's the correct answer. Who got it correct? Please raise your hand if you got it correct. I got it correct too. If you didn't get it right, please remember. There's people having less children in Japan. It seems as you might have the impression that there aren't so many young people in Japan, but globally, 40% of the population is young. 40% I thought was very high. And there are a lot of young people globally, and in the area of climate change, action by young people gaining momentum. And so you introduced to us action by young people. Ms. Saza, what do you think can be created as a result of cooperation and co-creation amongst young people? I would like to respond from a young person's perspective then. Above all, as was just mentioned, we don't have so many young people in Japan. People are having less children in Japan. You may have that impression, and that I think is correct. But globally, there are many young people, which means that there are many young people who can make a contribution. And 40% of the world population happen to be young people. And what is the kind of future that we want to realize after we can promote decarbonization? That, I think, is the homework given to all of us. We have to think about this ideal future world. Why do we have to pick up the voice of young people? As human resources, there are green jobs, but we, the young generation, we've been receiving ESG education from when we are very small. Economy, society, they are all integrated. That is what ESG means. In Japan, ESG education is compulsory for Generation Z. So compared with people who got to know ESG at an older age, we, I think, are able to take more action, and we are thinking about this topic more seriously. It's not that the older population is not thinking seriously about ESG, but we get to think about ESG from a younger age. And in your company, I think you're trying to employ various kinds of people. Young people want to work for organizations that can make a significant social contribution. And young people, we've gone through ESG education, and that's why we want to contribute to the society as much as possible. But when we join a company, in day-to-day business, we are not necessarily able to contribute to society as we originally expected. That is the gap, and that I think is a serious challenge. So as we work on decarbonization, reducing the use of energy, that is not enough. I think you have to change the way people work and the way we live our daily lives. It's a difficult challenge, but young people know what the values are, and we think we know what we have to do because we went through ESG education. And internationally, there is already a system to take this kind of an action. COP28 has a place for young people, and in the UK, there's a child parliament consisting of children aged 11 to 18 years old. So the UK is listening to the voice of children. And my friend started to participate in a UK parliament from 11 years old. She's too clever and not so cute. But the age doesn't matter. I think all of us used to be children before, so let's think about what we were like and try to do as much as possible. So these are some governmental activities, and there are international activities, and I think these similar actions can be taken in companies as well. For example, in marketing, reverse mentoring can be used. Try to learn as much as possible from young people. PwC, Unilever, General Electric, these kinds of companies have been at the forefront of these activities to pick up the voice of young people. And so it's a methodology that's been used from before, and as Japanese people are having less children, we have to use this methodology more and more. So not just picking the voice of young people, though, beyond generations, we need to share the same sense of value. That, I think, is another important role that we have to play. We have to position environment at the center, and we have to share knowledge, and we have to share the same sense of value. So what percent of the knowledge that we have is actually penetrated within companies? Environment and other important values, how can we spread them more and more within companies? UNEP, UN environmental plan, together with them, we have developed an e-learning tool. It's going to be released in October. And through these tools, we want these common values to spread in more and more companies so that we can more smoothly work on decarbonization. That's the kind of support we want to offer. So not only about decarbonization, but also how to preserve biodiversity on other topics as well. 3.5%. Who knows 3.5% theory? Thank you very much. 3.5% theory. What this means is Erica Chenoweth, professor of politics at Harvard University, conducts analysis of centennial peace and social infrastructure, social system. The timing of that changing, that is when 3.5% of the population gets to know this new piece of information. So in the case of Japan, how many people would it be? About 4.4 million people. That is 3.5% of the Japanese population. So if 4.4 million Japanese people change, we may be able to make a sea change in society. So let's speed up our activity and let's try to change more and more. And we, as young people, we want to be at the forefront and serve as front runners to lead this activity. Thank you very much. Young people who went through environmental education, these young people can spread a new wave into companies. I think that was the main message. Mr. Sogano, engagement was the keyword you mentioned before. There are various stakeholders, and many different companies have different goals and objectives. Under such circumstances, how are you promoting engagement? And as a financial institution, what kind of role do you think you are playing?
I was listening to good things about the younger generation. I'm sorry to bring you back to reality. We talk to different companies under the theme of engagement. And there are things that have changed as a result of the past several years. This is what I feel initially when we started targets toward net zero. How do you formulate these targets? Very basic, primitive questions were raised in large numbers. But at this point, the roadmap for net zero, how do we create that? The kinds of questions that we're getting. These are specific questions. And to these questions, we work together with them to create plans. And Iwamoto-san talked about how it's faster when you work together. And it's faster when you work together. And actually, the companies that we do business with, these are the heavy smokestack type of industries. And the bigger the company, it's different to change course, to steer in a different direction. As in the case of ships, when we say engagement, if you hear the word, you think of us engaging in dialogue with companies, and as a result of this dialogue, they immediately change their approach and formulate new plans. But that is wrong. Engagement is really time-consuming, as a matter of fact. At least it takes 3 years to 4 years, and finally, they gradually steered in a more decent direction, and this is the amount of time we spent. But that's reality. And because there is this reality, transition to net zero is not easy. And we can take examples from Japan, and we communicate that to people in Europe. 3-4 years ago, the discussion in Europe was such that it's either 0 or 1. Companies either emitted carbon, or the companies either did not emit carbon. It was either 0 or 1. Between 0 and 1, there's a lot of numbers in between 0.1 and 0.2. There are a lot of intervening numbers. And so we ask companies where they are. And you have to think of where you are. And you can't think in terms of 0 and 1. Taxonomy was such. The original idea was either 0 or 1. But we've communicated the fact that Japan does not subscribe to this view. And although this is not fortunate at all, unfortunately, things like the war in Ukraine occurred, and Europe is looking at reality, and they realize now how outrageous it is to think in terms of 0-1. Energy prices in Europe have gone several fold higher than in Japan, and so they think of the issue as their own issue now in Europe. So the 0-1 discussion will no longer do, and so people in Europe often use the word transition now. And so that's the extent to which the world is changing. And I talked about engagement. The trends in the world is something that we need to share. And so everyone can move in alignment with the trends of the times. Thank you.
The word engagement. you have to take time to have detailed and close dialogue with the investees. That I thought was the important point. We're running out of time. Thank you very much, all of you, for your passionate remarks. We want to continue to listen to you, but we have to go to the next question. What are the challenges in co-creation and cooperation? That's the next question. A bit shorter response, please, per person. What is the challenge? Starting from Mr. Iwamoto.
Well, you first have to give it a try. Find a partner that is willing to work with you. And when you are doing things for the first time, even if partners come together, not everything is covered. So who's going to fill the gap? You have to have that agreement and try it. For example, in our case, as we work on various things, a system that can control the car from outside, we realize that we don't have that capability. And that ability can be used for various things. We call it mobility service platform, data to be attracted and process it and share it with a partner. And to the input of the partner, we will be able to control the car in an optimum way. And with another partner, we were able to build such a platform within a space of 1 year. So when we run this project, what is missing and who's going to fill that gap? How do you take the project forward? If you have that agreement, well, this is the biggest challenge. Of course, we have failed in many, many projects. That is most cases because we were not able to find a good partner.
Finding a partner is the key. I think that's what you mentioned, Mr. Sagano.
This issue is such that you shouldn't aim to be perfect. In Japan, people tend to be serious and to disclose. When disclosure is involved or publishing is involved, they want to come up with something that is perfect. And if you try to be perfect, you can never be perfect. You can never reach 100% because the goal tends to move. The target becomes more difficult. So even if you're 70% or 80% as opposed to 100%, that's okay. And the remaining 20%, why can you not achieve the remaining 20%? You have to seriously think about it and disclose that as well. It's okay if everyone only achieves 70%. And if companies that achieve 70% that all disclose, we understand what the status of affairs is at the moment. That's good.
And then you disclose 70%, and for the remaining portion, you may be able to start a co-creation. Ms. Sasa, what's your opinion? Iwamoto-san and Sogana-san, thank you very much for wonderful comments. And so if I may add a bit more to what you just mentioned, and I have a question to you. Generation Z, who was able to talk to a Generation Z person this week? Please raise your hands. About a third of the audience. Thank you very much. Please talk to as many young people as possible. That's my proposal to all of you. Please talk to young people as much as possible. With speed, we have to work on decarbonization. For that, you need to find a good partner, and you have to involve young people as much as possible. And depending upon how much you can do that, the success rate may change. So please speak to as many young people who are conscious of the environment and involve young people. Thank you very much. Please talk to Sasa-san later on, then Mr. Togi.
So the challenge was the question. From a local government's perspective, decarbonization for the entire region, citizens, tier 2, tier 3, businesses in those tiers, we have to think about how to change their mindset and how can change their behavior. That I consider as a big challenge. I talked about the consortium with financial institutions as well as Chamber of Commerce. We formed such a consortium. This is to support local businesses to decarbonize. And there are companies who are being left behind, who are not able to make a start because they don't know what to do. There are many such companies. But at the same time, some companies do understand the importance, but they don't have human resources, they don't have money, and they don't have time. For these reasons, some companies are not able to implement, although they understand the importance. So with the consortium members, we try to educate these people. Public-private collaboration through decarbonization, we try to come up with a mechanism so that companies will be able to be rewarded for decarbonization. Because we created a consortium with financial institutions, we are trying to come up with such a mechanism. We're not eliminating any possibility. With that approach, we're being open. We're trying to work with many stakeholders to come up with many different ideas to make this approach.
Thank you very much. The time has come, so if I may summarize the discussion, the keywords that came up are finding a partner. That I think seems to be very important, but there are difficulties in finding a partner. But conversely, this means that if you can find a partner, there are many issues that you can solve. So the theme of the session is co-creation and cooperation. So that I think is a very cooperation and collaboration. That I think is very important to promote decarbonization. There are automobile manufacturers, representatives of the financial institution, and many other sectors. So please spread information as to what you can do and find many partners by spreading information. That we would like to do at JCI as well. I did want a final comment from each of the panelists, but due to time constraints, we have to conclude the session here. Thank you very much, everyone who participated in session 2. If you could please return to your seats. Institutional investors' perspective and business perspective, company, university, local government, young people. We've been able to listen to the voice of people belonging to various sectors, and co-creation and collaboration or cooperation. If I may add another point raised to the top, competition also seems to be important to promote climate crisis-related action. We need to create this kind of an environment. That's the impression I had listening to all of your comments. I wonder what the impression you had. I think you can bring home with you many ideas. Before the final leader session, we would like to take a break. And before that, though, another question.
So can you answer this question? What do you expect from leaders in each sector to accelerate decarbonization? Can you answer this question? While you're answering this question, please be back in your seats by 4:45. Thank you.